What's up, guys? Today we are going to be taking a look at the Lumary HDMI sync box with LED strip and 4 recessed LED lights in the ceiling. If you're not familiar with what a sync box is, it takes an input from whatever player you're using. In my case, it's a PS5, and it outputs it to your TV and takes that signal and puts it on this LED strip that is pointed at this wall here. And in this case, it is also using 4 in-ceiling LED lights and also going with the image that you see on the screen. We'll go over all that in just a little bit here. Lumary did send this out to me for review, but this is not sponsored. All my own opinions. They just sent this to me. They're not paying me anything. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's take a look at the box here real quick at the product information. I'm not going to go over all of this, just some of the important stuff. We are working at 12 volts, 55 to 65 inch TV for that backlight. We are using Zigbee protocol here for communication between the lights and the HDMI sync box, rated for 25,000 hours, 1,000 lumens. I'm assuming that's total. Wattage 13 watts, CRI of over 90. So one thing that stuck out to me, which is kind of disappointing, is that it is running at HDMI 2.0 speeds, which unfortunately is 4K at 60 hertz. If you're using something like the PlayStation 5 or the newer Xbox Series X and above, I believe, whatever is able to run 4K at 120 hertz needs, I believe, HDMI 2.1 speeds or greater in order to take advantage of the 120 hertz refresh rate. In my case, it's not that big of a deal in this room that I'm putting it in because the TV I'm using does not support 120 hertz. If I was installing this on my nice TV upstairs, that would kind of be a deal breaker for me because I want to take full advantage of that frame rate, obviously. But like I said, I'm putting it on a 60 hertz TV anyway, so just something to keep in mind. If you are putting this in line with a TV that can support 120 hertz, it's not going to be able to run at that. Like I said, it supports Zigbee, Android and iOS, obviously, Amazon, and Google Assistant as well. So let's get into the box here. We got a template to cut the holes in the ceiling if you don't already have any lights installed, user manual. Here we have the sync box itself. We've got 3 HDMI in ports and 1 out port, obviously, and we've got 2 USB ports for the string light, I'm guessing, and a 12 volt input. On the front here we've got a selector switch, probably to select your input, and we've got some Wi-Fi and Zigbee pairing buttons, power supply, HDMI cable. We've got some 3M adhesive for the LED strips, I'm guessing, and the LED strip for the back of the TV. And for the record, the LED strip does have 3M VHB tape on the back of it, so pretty high quality stuff. These clips would probably just be for around the corners, and the strip does have a waterproof coating on it. Not that you need it behind a TV, obviously, but it does allow it to be a little bit more protected. Let's see what's in the remaining 2 boxes. That would be the lights, of course. So this is how the light comes. It's designed for a drywall installation with these little flaps here or something similar. Comes with a little box that you can slide up into your ceiling, and it is rated for 100 to 130 volts AC coming in and output 30 volt DC. So there is an inverter, a power supply inside here stepping that voltage down. So you can't just run these off of 120. They are rated at 30 volts, it appears to be, and a max of 32 volts. It also comes with wire nuts and an extra little spring clip if you do happen to break those, if you are installing these in drywall. So that's pretty nice. Unfortunately, I'm not installing this in drywall. I already have recessed can light boxes in there, the kind that are installed before you install the ceiling. All right, let's go ahead and get these installed. It does say to start with the lights themselves, and then we will move on to the controller as well as the app setup. Let's take you a little bit behind the scenes and show you the room that I'm going to be installing these in. Whoop. So the room is just around the corner here. So we've got the 4 recessed lights up here and the TV here. Obviously, we're going to be hopefully redoing this whole thing in the process and mounting the TV up on the wall, cleaning all this up a little bit. Excuse the mess. This is kind of the kids' playroom, so let's get started. So when I redid this room, I did it kind of traditionally using a standard can light recessed box. These are running at 120 volts, so like I said, we will have to kind of install it like this with the box on top of the light, if you will. But it should work. We might be able to reuse these guys. We'll figure something out. I'm definitely going to have to reuse these little trim kit that I bought because I did a horrible job cutting this shiplap out. It's a lot harder than you might think. So these old lights used one of these pigtails here. So what I'm going to do is just cut this off and wire this up to that box, and then should just be able to shove it all in there. So the only thing I have to figure out is how to mount the actual light to this box. So without the trim kit piece, the new light barely fits the box itself. They both say that they're rated for 6 inches, so keep that in mind. The actual diameter is 6 3/4. My old light gave a lot more help at 7 1/2. This trim piece does not fit on there. I'm gonna have to do some cutting on this piece of trim. A little bit extra work I didn't plan on doing. Obviously, if you're doing this as a new install, you would just use the little hole cutout template and you'd be good to go. But since I am kind of doing a remodel here, I gotta kind of make it work. As you can see, I figured it out. So for starters, I made the trim piece smaller, the inside diameter a little bit smaller, just with a sander and a file. It took me a little while, but I got it to work. Okay, so what I did was just loop the spring from the old light around the spring from the new light, just like that. And then hook it into the retainer just like you would with the old style light. Both sides. And then flip up the orange clip so it'll fit inside the box. There we go. It's in there. Like I mentioned previously, my old lights use the screw-in connector and just attached here. So I don't need this connector anymore, so I'm going to cut this off. And I'm going to put these wires into this box, attach them inside, and then plug it in. And then when I go to install it back up into the box, I will just screw in this connector. And this can kind of just sit on top of the light in there so that there's no strain on any of the wires. Go ahead and connect this wiring. Not too bad. Now that all 4 lights are installed and ready to go, I need to install the sync box and the LED strip on the TV. As you can see from the change, the TV is now mounted on the wall. I'm going to mount the sync box to the back of the TV with some command strips, these kind of command strips here. I'm going to attach this to the back of the TV and then attach the LED strip to the back of the TV and then pass through everything that I'm going to be using with the sync box, the Xbox, the PlayStation, probably a Fire Stick, stuff like that is all going to be tucked away in that back room. Hopefully will work without any issues because I don't want any of that to be out here and messy. So that's the plan. Let's get started. So this LED strip is actually broken into 4 sections, which is awesome. It makes my life installing this a lot easier. Here's the start with the USB on the end of it. And this would be one side section because it's one of the shorter sections, and it ends just like this with a cord in between the next section. And if I just go ahead and test this side, it fits absolutely perfectly right here, if you can see that. And if I test the long end here, also an absolutely perfect fit. So before I go ahead and stick this down, I'm going to clean this edge with isopropyl alcohol. Okay, so if looking at the back of the TV, the bottom left corner down here is where I'm going to start. Since there's so much going on at this corner, I would say a 55-inch TV is definitely on the small side. 60 or 65 would be just about perfect for this size light strip, but it's going to work. We'll figure it out. Just don't worry, if you do have a bigger TV, you'd be better off, not worse off. We'll do the same on the other 3 corners. All right, so we are looking good, nice and smooth on the corners. Can't see it from the front. That's the main concern I had. We want to make sure that these don't fold back. We want to make sure both of these first LEDs, the last LED on this one and the first LED on this one, is not folded over, but we are good there. Other side. can't see anything from the front. Go about down here. So I've got the sync box here. I'm going to mount to the back of the TV. As I mentioned earlier, USB from our lights. Going to go into light 1. Also, the kit comes with its own HDMI cable, so I will take the HDMI out on the sync box and plug it into HDMI 1 on the TV. And then we'll take this HDMI cable, which is going into that back room, plugged into the PlayStation, and plug it into HDMI 1 on the sync box. We've also got two other options, in my case for Xbox and a Fire Stick or whatever we decide to go with. Now all we've got left is to power this up and then add it to the app. Alright, so my battery camera died and I'm not sure where we left off. It's actually an entirely new day, so let's start fresh here. I did some cable management off camera. It is nice and neat here. We've got the outlet and some cords coming in from the PlayStation and the Xbox. Cable managed into the Lumary sync box here. We've got the two inputs from the PlayStation, Xbox, and we've got one output here to the TV. And of course, it takes the signal from the PlayStation or Xbox, whichever one is on and outputting a signal, and it does its magic to figure out what colors are where on the screen in order to give us that nice effect. And we've got the light strip here, the LED strip, and power here. We've got the strip starting in the bottom right corner if facing the front of the screen. And now we're going to go ahead and get everything set up in the app. Everything is installed and ready to go. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is power on the sync box here, the switch, and we should see this start to flash red. We'll go ahead and add device in the app and it will start searching, but I'm just going to go to gateway control and click on HDMI. Put in our Wi-Fi information and click next. Make sure it's powered on. Plug in the USB strip. Yes, that's all done already. And make sure that the box is switched on as I just did. And now, as you can see, it is blinking slowly. Click next, and then we will connect to the Wi-Fi network that the sync box is putting out. Go into our Wi-Fi settings, click on the Lumary option. Okay, it registered and it will do its magic and connect, and then connect to my Wi-Fi network. And it has to be a 2.4 gigahertz network. Okay, just like that, it is all set up, connected to Wi-Fi. Let me just rename this. And now we go to configure. So let's move the camera around and get this guy configured. So the first step of the configuration is to select the position, which is the bottom right. Click next, and we have this going installed counterclockwise. Click counterclockwise, and we don't have these light bars, so we'll just click next. Now it wants to check and make sure everything's right, so let me turn on the PlayStation. Okay, so we can see that it is working properly. This is just one test. We'll do more videos later and more scenarios on kind of how this can look, especially with the 4 LED lights also. So let's go ahead and get those added and set up as well, and then check out the whole experience altogether. So you can see the 4 down lights in the shot here. I'm going to flip the switch to turn them on, and they should start pulsing and putting them in pairing mode. You can see that all 4 of them are pulsing. And in the app here, we go into the sync box and bottom right corner, gateway configuration. And this is adding the 4 Zigbee lights to the sync box via Zigbee. So we'll go to add subdevice, and it's just making sure they're in pairing mode, which they already are. We should see 4 devices pop up here. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've got all 4 devices that showed up. Click next, and I'm not going to name them right now, I'll do that later. Done, and now they are added not only as their own, but within the sync box. So as you can see, they can be controlled individually. So now we need to add the 4 lights to the configuration of the sync box so that it knows which light to put in which spot to go with it. So I'm going to be putting it as if the TV was up on the ceiling in the middle of these 4 lights. It would kind of be ideal if the lights were above the TV, but that's not really practical in a room, so I'm going to do the best I can to make it look as immersive as possible. So let's go to configure the device at the top there, and we can one by one add the devices. You don't really have to worry about naming them just yet, because you can just press and hold one of them, and as you can see, this one turned blue. And we want this one in the top right corner, so we just drag it to that spot in the app. You can see that it's yellow, so now this one turned yellow, which I know is hard for you to see. And we'll add another one. We'll push and hold it, see which one turned different color. Back left one in this case, which is going to be the bottom left. So I'll drag it to that quadrant of the app. Add another light, press and hold it. It is this one, top left. Add it to the top left. And the final one obviously goes here. Make sure that it is connected. So now they are all colored lights. We'll get a better shot of that in just a minute. Save it. Now all of these lights as well as the RGB strip on the TV should all sync together. So here's a good example of showing how I set up the ceiling lights. Only that particular light is going to turn on because that's the only output signal from the PlayStation via this YouTube video. Only that small square is showing any kind of signal, in this case white, and it's going to bounce around the colors that way. Now the wall looks a little bit purple right now. That's just how the camera is picking it up. It's not a perfect white like you see on the TV in person, but it's a little bit better than what the camera is picking up. So when you're not in the mood for TV, video games, movie, whatever, there is music mode. So go over to music mode, we can select whatever style we want, and we'll just choose rock and this first color option, and you can see it's right away going with my voice. Now I believe the microphone is inside the sync box itself. So the closer you get, obviously it's picking up everything I'm saying right now and going with my voice. So you can either play a song or whatever on the TV, music video, whatever, and the microphone in the sync box will pick it up. Or if you have a phone or something else that you want to play music from, just make sure that you put it close to the TV, aka the sync box, so that it picks it up. All right, now let's talk about some of the downsides of the product. Now, as you can see, it does the color mapping really well, but wherever there's a black, the absence of any kind of color, it just gives a little bit of a white hue or a purple hue because these are RGB lights. They're not an RGBW light. So it has to combine the red, green, and blue to create a white color. And it's kind of an off-white, a little bit of purple, as I mentioned before. Not as bad as the camera picks up, but it'd be better if they just turned off, if there was no color at all in those segments where there is no color. Here, obviously, we've got that separation with the purple and the blue. It looks great, but when there's no color at all, like for example, that top left corner should be completely black at times, or the bottom left now, there's a segment that is lit up still with just a dull white. Hopefully that can be a software update in the future that they can fix that. So that's one thing that I'm not a huge fan of. I'd rather have it a little bit more immersive with the absence of any light at all. The ceiling lights do that. They turn off completely when there's nothing there. But for some reason, the LED strip does not. Now, another thing that I'm not a fan of is when you turn the sync box off in the app, this LED strip turns off, which is as expected, but the 4 lights up top will just stay on whatever color they were on last, and you have to individually turn them off or pull power to all 4 of them at the switch on the wall. So I feel like that can be a software update as well, to just turn them all off at that point, as long as they're connected to the sync box. And going along with that, you can't turn the individual ceiling lights off or change any kind of settings with them as long as they're connected to the sync box. You would have to disconnect them completely and then do whatever you want with the ceiling lights. So another thing that hopefully will be fixed in a software update. Other than those things, I think it's a great product. It seems to work really well. There's not much delay, if any, that I can see between the ceiling lights and the sync box as far as the Zigbee communication goes. I love the seamless look of not having a camera up here. There are other products like the Govee that is actually a camera. It looks like a little antenna that sticks up and watches the TV to see what it needs to output to the light strip. This way you don't have anything. In my case, there's no wires, no cables. It's just a nice seamless look, which is what I was going for, and I think it turned out great. So the only thing holding me back from purchasing another one for another room in the house would probably be the price. It's a little pricey, but if this is in your budget, then I would definitely say to go for it. It looks great. It's really does transform the room and gives it a whole nother vibe, and with lots of options as far as the music syncing, obviously the video mode, as well as just any kind of random pattern that they've got in the app as well. It brought a $100 TV from Marketplace to a much higher end looking setup, if you ask me. So that's all I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a little bit of an involved setup, but I hope you stuck with me and stayed till the end. If you did, I really appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one.